Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's see if I can sort of get my head around where we're at here. So I'm not so sure I've been playing the same game as everybody else. I might have to reevaluate what game I need to be playing in the future. It's important to know where you stand before I can vote yes. I think that's true for a Republican nominee, but not so much for a Democrat. Let me tell you what Senator Leahy said. I certainly don't want you to have to lay out a test here in the abstract, which might determine what your vote or your test would be in a case you have yet to see that may well come before the Supreme Court. Now, that's the standard when there's a Democratic nominee. And when there's a Republican nominee, you've got to tell these senators that you won't get in the way of their agenda. I'm not asking you to tell me whether or not you agree with my agenda. I'm asking you whether or not you will fairly hear the cases before you, because to do anything else would be unfair to you. The life issue is very real. There are a lot of Americans who believe that life begins at conception. There are a lot of Americans who believe that Roe v. Wade was a grab of power from legislative people, but it is the law of the land. It will be given due weight if somebody challenges it. Do you agree with me it is the law of the land that in late-term abortions, they have been limited through congressional action and approved by the Supreme Court?
In certain circumstances, yes.
In certain circumstances, the Congress overwhelmingly voted to limit abortions in the last trimester, and the Supreme Court said in those circumstances, you have the authority to do that. Is that the state of the law?
That's part of the state of the law, Senator.
Okay. And I would imagine this issue will be revisited as long as people have differences. There will be a lot of issues coming before the court because Americans don't agree on some of the more emotional topics, like when life begins and what's the role of the legislative body, what's the role of the court, when do you have a soul if you have one, and what's the right to be conferred by unelected judges versus people who have to answer to the public. So all I'm saying, if we're going to vote against a nominee because they won't tell us things that we want to hear about issues important to us, then the whole nominating process has become a joke. And what has happened over time is that somehow, some way, we've gone from Scalia, the originalist, getting 98 votes, Ginsburg, the bastion of liberalism on the court, well qualified, getting 96 votes. What's happened? Did the Constitution change? I don't think so. I think politics has changed. I think it's changed in a fashion that we should all be ashamed of as senators. And I think we're doing great damage to the judiciary by politicizing every judicial nomination. If you don't agree with my basis view of the world, I cannot vote for you. This is what Greg Craig, the former White House counsel in the Obama administration, said about Elena Kagan. She's a progressive in the mold of Obama himself. So Reince Priebus said that Trump picked a good guy. Well, Craig Craig, the former White House counsel, said that Obama picked in Elena Kagan a progressive in the mold of Obama himself. I did not vote for President Obama, but he won in spite of my opposition. I do believe as President of the United States, he had a right to pick somebody from the progressive wing of the law. I expected him to do so, and he did. Twice. I knew full well what I was getting. And I hope you understand that you're getting one of the most qualified conservative judges in the country. Senator Feinstein said her goal was to find out if you're a reasonable mainstream conservative. I would tell you, Senator Feinstein, without any hesitation, this man is as mainstream as you will get. If you don't believe me, listen to the people who know him the best. 2,700 cases and being reversed once. The bottom line here is we're taking the nomination process to a place it was never intended to go by the framers of the Constitution, and Alexander Hamilton would be rolling over in his grave to believe that the United States Senate has now gotten to the level of where I can't vote for you if you won't tell me about cases important to me and you don't share my philosophy. That means advise and consent is not really advise and consent. It means that we are the president and we're the judge. And if you wouldn't rule like us, you can't be on the court. And if you come from a philosophy that we reject as a party, then you can't be a judge. That will be bad for the country. Now, let's talk a little bit about Griswold. You said that Griswold was a case decided by the Supreme Court that does what?
Senator, it guarantees married couples the privacy in their own home to use contraceptives.
Is it a longstanding precedent of the Supreme Court?
It is, Senator.
What weight would you give that?
Well, Senator, under the law of precedent, you look at the age. This one's over 50 years. You look at the reliance interests, which are obvious and substantial. You look at whether it's been reaffirmed, which it has many times. And Senator, as I said yesterday, I just cannot imagine a state attempting to pass a law like that.
Well, let's say they did.
And I can't imagine the Supreme Court of the United States taking that claim seriously.
Let's say they did, and I'm with you on both. Would you listen to the people who made the argument, to make the argument?
Senator, you listen to every person who comes to court.
So to overturn Griswold, you got to get a case in controversy, right?
Right.
That means somebody somewhere has got to convince, I don't know, some state or some body somewhere to outlaw contraception in the marital relationship. That would be a case in controversy.
Well, you'd have to have a state that pass a law like that,
Or what about a city council?
or whatever, and then you have to have somebody try and enforce it.
Right. Then it would maybe get to you. And if that day ever come, you would listen to what the other side had to say, then you would decide. Is that fair enough?
You'd apply the precedent of the United States Supreme Court, and if they were trying to overturn the precedent, you go through the factors and you consider them. And
So you're not here to tell us what you like or don't like in the law. You're telling us about the process of how the law works.
that's right, Senator.
And you're here as a human being, can't imagine some legislative body, particularly at state level, outlawing contraception. You just don't see that as a real threat right now.
I don't see it as a real threat today,
Okay.
Senator.
Originalism. Are you an originalist?
Senator, as we spoke of yesterday, I'm happy to be called that. I do worry about the use of labels in our civic discussion to sometimes ignore the underlying ideas, as if originalism belonged to a party. It doesn't. As if it belonged to an ideological wing. It doesn't.
Well, here's what I would say about originalism. Whether you like it or not, is it bound by the law?
That, of course it is. It's the whole point of how you interpret the law.
Now, to those who believe that the Constitution is a living, breathing document that can speak to you and nobody else, that bothers me. But there are people on the Supreme Court who have the view that the Constitution is a living, breathing document related to the times in which we live in. That seems to open the door that I can get the outcomes I want, not so much bound by the words or the history. The bottom line is there are different ways of looking at the role of being a judge. Do you believe that your way of looking at being a judge has stood the test of time?
I do.
Do you believe over the last 10 years your way of looking at being a judge has received respect from people who disagree with you?
I think you're going to hear from some of them tomorrow.
Do you believe that the American Bar Association has looked at your way of being a judge and found you well qualified?
I'm very honored by their assessment.
You've decided over 2,700 cases, is that right?
That's right.
Been overturned once, maybe?
Maybe.
Okay. I'm going to say once,
Well,
and you're just going to have to live with it
well,
and accept it.
ma-
The bottom line is,
Maybe.
let's say it's once. I would say that the way you judge has been viewed by people above you as being acceptable almost all the time but once. Now, to my friends on the other side, what more can you ask for? What are you looking for? Are you looking for somebody that will make your political life easy? Well, he's not the guy. Because he's not going to make your political life easy, because he was appointed by the guy that you were all against, and I didn't vote for. I haven't voted for a president who won in 12 years. So I'm probably not the one to give you legal advice, political advice. But I have voted for nominees of those who did win in the time that I've been here. I intend to vote for you for the same reasons that are articulated for Sotomayor and Kagan in terms of your qualifications. I intend to vote for you because I think you represent a conservative's view of how to be a judge. I'm excited about that. I think President Trump, with all of his problems and all of his mistakes, chose wisely when it came to this man. I want to congratulate the president. And I want to say this, that when you rejected some of the statements that President Trump made toward judges as being, what were your words?
Senator, I spoke of when anyone.
Anyone, which would include President Trump.
Anyone
Okay.
criticizes the honesty, the integrity, the decency of federal judges and what they do, or attacks their motives and how they come about arriving at their decisions. I know those people. I know how hard they work and how decent they are. I find that disheartening and demoralizing. That's what I have said. I'm not saying we're immune from attack from decisions. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have thick skin. My hide's pretty thick. And I know that the hides of federal judges have to be.
Well, I just want to associate myself with what you said about what President Trump said, that I thought it was really out of bounds. You're the most powerful man in the world, and judges work in quiet, dark corners. They have no political machine. They have no PAC. They can't go out and do news conferences. Of the three branches of the government, they're the most vulnerable. So I stand firmly with you and firmly with anybody. And my friends on the other side say that President Trump was really out of bounds. But here's what I wish some of y'all would do. Here's what Nancy Pelosi said. If you breathe air, drink water, eat food, take medicine, or in any other way interact with the courts, this is a very bad decision. That means picking you. I haven't heard one person on that side say, that is out of bounds. That is political garbage. To my good friend Ron Wyden, no senator who believes that individual rights are reserved to the people and not the government can support this nomination. Elizabeth Warren, let's not mince words. The nomination of Judge Gorsuch is a huge gift to the giant corporations and wealthy individuals who have stolen a Supreme Court seat in order to make sure that the justice system works for them. It's okay to criticize Trump, but apparently it's okay for you to slander this man, and none of you say a damn thing about it. I don't think it's okay. I don't like what's going on here. I don't like where the Senate's heading, but there's nothing I can do about it other than be myself. So, Judge, I just want to say, I think you're qualified. I think the answers that you can't give us come from the fact that you understand that if you gave those answers, you would compromise your ability to fairly decide cases that may become before you in the future. And that when a Democrat says that, they're just being a good judge. When you say that, oh, I can't vote for you. What a double standard. Thank you.